the important thing in a company is managing total risk. When you decide you're going to get a more ambitious spec for your product, instead of a 10% efficiency improvement, you're going to shoot for 20. What you are doing is saying, I'll increase my technical risk, I'll reduce my market risk. That's what you're doing. When you say, oh, I could develop this with 5 engineers, but if I had 7, maybe I could get there faster, maybe I could try 2 different ways of doing the same thing. You're trading financial risk, higher burn rate, for technical risk. You're reducing your technical risk and increasing your financial risk. So there's complex interaction. And the job of a CEO is to manage total risk. You may shoot for a safer, smaller company. You may shoot for a bigger, more aggressive company. That's trading market risk for financial risk. When you hire one less person, when you do without a skill set, you trade taking people risk. When you're hiring that crazy guy who knows a lot but can't work with anybody, you're taking one kind of people risk, reducing your technology risk possibly. Everything's a trade-off, and the only job of a CEO is risk management. Many more risk trade-offs occur than you can conceptualize or think about, but you are making these trade-offs every single day. So let me talk about just a couple. Diversity I've talked about in people. You have 3 engineers from 3 different companies with 3 different experience sets. You have a lot less risk than 3 engineers from the same company. Most firms tend to hire from the companies that the founders came from, the people the founders already know, and they unwittingly increase their risk. Almost nobody worries about collecting mistakes and biases. To me, when most of the risks and problems, technical problems you run into are ones you can't think of today, which is true of almost all of you. Collecting all the people with more mistakes, more different biases, or more creativity, even if they're not easily manageable, or they're fresh and innovative and don't know what they don't know, you're increasing the probability you'll solve the problem. Financial risk. And I won't go through all these, and I'll be happy to do the whole detailed 3-hour talk on this sometime, which I probably should do, maybe at the next CEO conference on a separate day. But most people time budget. In April, we'll hire 2 people. In September, we'll hire 6 more. In October, we'll increase that to 7. Wrong way to do things. You're not budgeting on time, because time, though variable, is not your most important variable. Your risks, because your job is managing total risk, is your most important variable. So you change headcount when you achieve risk goals. When you increase your burn rate on your budgeted schedule, but you haven't met your milestone, you've increased your financial risk without reducing your technical risk. That's a bad trade-off. So I always like to say, what are the risk inflection points the way KR explained them? Measure the inflection points. When you get to a level of reduction, add the next increment of burn, commitment to a production facility, commitment to more hiring the marketing people, hiring the salespeople. Risk inflection points is how you manage a company. Finally, just a word of caution, the worst case is always worse than you think. Hope for the best, plan for the worst. Finally, plan for the unplanned. There's a big difference between planning for X, Y, and Z and planning for a difficult to plan situation. One's about contingency plans, when you plan for X, Y, Z. The other is about dynamic behavior. You're ready to adapt to contingent changes in plans, because all plans change. I've talked about this, and so I won't spend time on it. There are trade-offs. I will say in technology, I find most companies screw up in every possible way, looking for a solution to a problem. And it feels like when you've exhausted all the wrong ways to do things, you find the right way, sometimes too late. Now, if you can increase your cycle times, and the common question I ask entrepreneurs is, how can you do 10 times more experiments than you're doing? And those of you who work with me closely know I always ask this question. And the reason I don't ask, how do you do twice as many experiments, is because the usual answer is we need twice as many people. When I say, how do you increase it 10 times, people don't say, I need 10 times more people. They come up with a different way to reduce the cycle time. Because I framed the question extreme, they look at a different way to cycle things. Again, this is a complex topic of cycle times and how it impacts risk. In terms of techniques, this is one of the most important techniques in technical development. Try an idea, think of an idea, try it, think of a new idea, try it again. How fast can you do it? Finally, on markets, dynamics matter. It's not what the market is, it's how you get started. Most risk centers around getting started, not the market, how you achieve X, Y, Z in the steady state. If you have 10 salesmen, you'll sell this much. If you have 100,000 customers, you'll get this much traffic. That's irrelevant. The dynamics of getting started is what's really hard, and where almost all marketing risk lies in startups. And so we try and avoid market risk, and you should too. Finally, investors have personal context. Investors have biases. They've succeeded with some things. They've failed with others. And patternicity, as Michael talked about, kicks in all the time. Investors are not rational beings. And so it's important to realize you're speaking to an audience who has a set of experiences. And sort of once burned, twice shy, even if they got burned for the wrong reason. And you wouldn't believe how much patternicity exists in investors. It is mind-boggling to me. But it is true. The investors are predictably irrational. There's also a lot of groupthink, both among investors and, unfortunately, within companies. I tell companies, spend more time with people who don't like your stuff and figure out why. If one out of those 5 reasons is a valid reason, you've saved yourself a year of development that you'll discover later. Sometimes I tell people, if you want to be mean, go pitch to investors, not because you want money, even when you're not raising money, just to get the criticism. There is nothing more valuable than somebody who disagrees with your point of view. And if internally you can set up that diversity and have managed conflict, it's really managed conflicting ideas, you will reduce your risk and reduce the risk of groupthink. Culture matters. And culture is a very important risk management tool. I won't spend any more time on it. Thank you all very much.